And we're live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. Vlogcast comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. The Vlogcast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect because we wanted to go ahead and bitch and moan and bark at people that deserve it and wanted to do it in an environment where we could get away with that and not piss off people that really want to have much more fun. Not that we're not having fun. Shut up, whatever. Part of this is to follow through with the old adage that sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I'm your main host. I'm known as Shujin Tribble all over the place. You can find me pretty much everywhere under that name, Shujin. It's kind of hard to miss me. Let me go ahead and introduce you to everybody because we're actually doing pretty good tonight. Mostly. I'll explain part of that in a second. From the very frigid Midwest of the U.S., good evening, Brigid.
Good evening.
It has the Arctic blast come and hit you guys just yet, or is that still a couple hours off?
We're supposed to get hit with snow about 4:45, so it's coming. And it's going to get down in single digits. Yay!
Joy. From south of me over into Pittsburgh, PA. Joey, good morning.
Yep.
To the right, outside of, oh my God, things are really heating up, Washington, D.C. UnrenownedTech, hi, good to have you back.
Hi, it's good to be back. Enjoying a nice cup of coffee while watching the politicians tell each other, shut the STFU.
Yeah, right about now, I wish I had some, because I didn't think to make any.
I was definitely enjoying the part where the Democrats were actually asking questions and Republicans were just character assassinating their own people.
Yeah, funny enough, that's actually going to become important shortly.
Yeah, I find it very amusing.
Yeah, and from over the water into Paris, France. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning, sir.
So we're all here. We're still waiting for Dalan to get his richly deserved bonus check so he can get himself a new computer because, you know, computers. I would be deeply remiss if I did not open so far at this point to say that Facebook, you're a rat bastard sometimes.
Yeah.
For those of you that might not have known, for whatever reason, today should have been Heretic Woman's birthday. And of course, we've got all of the notices on Facebook that says, hey, write on our wall and say happy birthday.
Mm-hmm.
I could, and I didn't.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Shujin. Happy birthday to you. There, it's over and done with.
Sorry, did you miss the part where I said it was Heretic Woman's birthday?
Wait, I thought I had it marked on my phone that yours is coming up pretty soon here.
Coming up, yes. But that's not today.
Yeah, and all the people writing on her wall, happy birthday, and I'm like, no, she's dead. Yeah.
No, I heard birthday because I was trying to pull up some of the statements and questions from the questioning with the Democrats and the Republicans. And when I heard birthday, I remember my phone warned me that, hey, March 4th or 5th or one of them was yours. And I was just like, oh, I should tell Shujin happy birthday. He just said birthday.
No, I appreciate that. It turns out funny. I've, let's see, it's myself. Sorry?
Yeah. Shujin birthday. Oh, that didn't work.
Because the way that you yeah, mine is Monday. One of the people that we know, well, Joe and I know from Second Life, Stormfront also shares the same birthday, and one of my folks is on the 6th, and Felix knows full well. So
no, I didn't.
A couple of them coming up.
I did not have Heretic Woman's birthday. I didn't even know it was today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like with many other times that I've talked about, grief over the years that we've been doing this, there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, and every once in a while you're just going to get punched right in the gut, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm sorry, I've got her voice stuck in my head. And Brigid, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm freaking dead. It doesn't matter. Shut up and move the hell on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. And yeah, she'd be right. And at the same time, I'd be able to actually go, fuck you, because mood and emotions, and what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Got a reminder I was going to her wedding too. Thank you, Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, we were gonna be
Fuck you, Zuck.
I was gonna do music.
Even more reason we need AI.
Maybe what do they call it? The singularity. Yeah, that's both an amazing and terrifying concept all at the same time. But we'll save that for another night, because wow, I really don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. But I would love to have fun with that. So we will. Anyway, since we are here, of course, all of you, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Of course, if you are watching live, please take advantage of the live chat feature. I don't know where it is on your screen. I don't care. It's there. For me, it's right there. So Kato, Trippin, Stephanie, Felis, thank you guys, of course, as always, for being with us. For those of you that were knowledgeable about it, yes, I did have my little other project on the side that I did earlier today, and I'm proud for that, because the first render of the video actually went and rendered correctly the first time through, which is very nice for a change. Anyway, who knew that you could pull out so much hair over a 7-minute 10-second video? Whatever. Anyway, so let me go ahead and get everything rolling over here, because I need to kind of get that done, and we'll kind of see where tonight takes us. So, starting off for tonight with 5 minutes on the clock, freestyle for tonight starts right now. So, what did I do with this one? Actually, believe it or not, I actually had the freestyle and the topic for tonight flipped originally. I was going to go ahead and do the whole evidence thing, but Pell, anybody been watching the news, you might have seen out there in Australia, Cardinal Pell was finally convicted for, what's the word that we're looking for here? Oh yes, child rape. Yes, I went ahead and I said it. As the defense put it, just the plain vanilla intercourse with a minor, because of course that makes everything so much better to deal with. I'm sorry, no it doesn't, because no matter what adjectives you put into that, you still put something into something else that shouldn't have been in the first place. But the biggest problem of it all is that we still have to deal with the knowledge that this some bitch went ahead and said, well, I can't fly to Australia from Vatican City. I'm a frail old man. I could have doctors say I shouldn't go. And then the people who are actually doctors and certified in the areas of cardiac and pulmonary stuff went ahead and said, I'll pay my own way and I'll fly with him, so that if anything should happen, I can treat him on the flight to Australia. And there were a lot of people who went ahead and said they would do that. They'd pay their own way, they would bring their own medical stuff, they would provide their medical license, and they would take care of him if anything should happen on the flight. How delicious that was. The silence that came from all of that. And after all of that bullshit, they finally got his ass down there to answer for the crimes that he was finally convicted for. And the piece that annoys me is that it's one. But there's something important about that one. If there is one thing that I've learned that I really detest, it's the following term. But sometimes, as with all things, a tool is only evil or good depending as to how it's used. The term is wedge. Over here in the US, we have to worry about the wedge, where we have to worry about religion trying to meddle its way into the affairs of state. The wedge document. The idea is that if you just tease at a little piece here, just a little piece there, you can open it up so that you can get more tendrils into all the other stuff. But just like any tool, it's how you use it. Cardinal Pell is one step into getting further and further into the documentation for the Vatican, little bit by little bit. It's a long time coming, but if the information can finally be gleaned out, if it can be scooped out, if it can be brought to the daylight, like a good vampire, a little bit of sunlight can make all the difference in making this disgusting facade crumble. I can't wait for that day. I am very much looking forward to that day. And you know what? Not the only one. There are people in Boston, in Buffalo, in New York City, in Pennsylvania, all around the world, where this tentacled beast has tried to set up shop, has set up shop for centuries. I want a stake put through this thing's heart. Not because of what it's done to me, because I got lucky, but because of what it's done to the most innocent and the most deserving of protection. Those that were told to shut your mouth because we don't talk that way about Father Monsignor whoever. Look what we did to those kids. Dragons have more respect for the hoards of gold that they sit on than you do. You rat bastards. This is episode 251 on the docket, Your Honor. Liars can't be trusted. Oh, wow. What was talked about as we were opening up about how Michael Cohen was basically said, you're a liar, you're a cheat, and blah, 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 you know, yelling and screaming from the Republican side, not defending, but trying to impugn on this guy's overall character. And I don't like to make the show about just my country and what's going on with it because everybody else does it. But the idea of being able to say, ooh, I can take this piece and we can use it, because we keep hearing the answer. We keep hearing the question, well, what would you need to believe in God? Doesn't matter which God. And the answer always comes up. Evidence. Why should we believe you? It's the same question that keeps coming up. And the answer is always evidence. That would make all the difference in the world. So there are a number of times where this has come up, and we're going to kind of bring a couple of them to the fore, and we're going to discuss what is, yet again, what isn't, what's worthy, and if you're trying to evaluate somebody else, what you should be looking for and why. Or better yet, why you shouldn't accept various different things, be that as it may. Unfortunately, I don't have any new information specifically on Rafe Badawi, other than I'm seeing rumblings about people who have been how should we put it? Troublemakers in Saudi Arabia who have been trying to get, equality for, I don't know, repressed minorities, specifically women, and they're getting targeted. So, yay! Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. However, with no new news on those conditions, which is too much the norm right now, as of the recording of tonight's show, it has now been 6 years, 8 months, 18 days since he was unjustly incarcerated for thought crime. Our hopes and our thoughts are still with you and your family. We are still waiting. So, my sound is muffled coming in and out.
Yeah, the muffling aspect of your sound happens, and then it'll phase back to normal, then it'll phase back to muffling. And it's not consistent timing either between the two.
That's terribly annoying. My microphone input at the OS level looks like it's about right. And it all looks like it's supposed to be right. I'm wondering if maybe it's just the Hangouts screwing around with me a little bit. Because otherwise everything looks right.
And it could always be buffering.
It could be. All right. I turned the master down just a little bit just to be safe.
It's just one of the many magical things about the internet.
Yeah. True enough. Anyway, so I am going to go ahead and check up on what you guys are talking about over there in the chat momentarily. So you'll forgive me. Talking and reading at the same time is not something that I can really do very well. At least not. I can't read something that I'm not saying. That's not a talent that I've got. Teleprompter wise, I can do that. Sure, that's not a problem. But reading what's going on over here and saying something different, no, doesn't work that way. Try it sometime. You'll see how fun that is. Yeah. Anyway, with all that out of the equation, I know for LGBTQIA you were following along with this. The rest of you guys, were you at all following the which group was it again? It was the Oversight Committee, the House Oversight Committee. You checked up on any of that? No, heard anything?
Nope, I've been busy.
Well, yes. Plus, you have a habit of just not paying very much attention to the news for a good reason.
Because I don't need the news to make my life depressing. It's already depressing enough.
That's right. That's what you got me for. You're welcome.
Case in point.
You sound like you're ready to go into something.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it did sound like you were getting ready to, hit us with something.
Well...
And not a baseball bat either.
I haven't actually mentioned it on this show, so I probably should. Here coming up in the next, at this point, within the next 58 days, 23 hours, 34 minutes, and 1 second, I'm going to be taking a hiatus from the show for the foreseeable future. And I realize that out of a 365-day year, roughly 60 days is not exactly, immediate, but
it's 1/6 of the year.
It's close enough. It's 2 months. At which point I will no longer be a resident of the fair city of Pittsburgh.
You'll no longer be a Pennsyltuckian. Are you moving up in the world?
That's Beth.
Yeah.
I thought Pittsburgh was in Pennsylvania.
It is in Pennsylvania. It's not in this. It's not exactly in the region that would be considered Pennsyltucky.
I call all of Pennsylvania Pennsyltucky.
You would.
I do live in Kentuckiana.
And you. Wow.
And I live in Keano, Maryland. Or Keanoland.
I live in cold right now.
Actually, I'll tell you, the only two major problems down here aren't murders and all that other stuff. It's heroin and alcoholism. So I have no idea what other states that relates to.
Well, plain and simple, I have lived in Pittsburgh for roughly 7 years, which, yes, is plenty of time for me to have become a citizen of the fair state. Well, I'm sorry, it's not a state, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and so on and so forth. Have I? No, because it was never my intention to stay in Pennsylvania indefinitely, or even as long as I have, for that matter. I finished up my schooling 3 years ago, and I had every intention of moving out then and there. It's just a matter of
other stuff got in the way.
Yeah, basically. Okay. So I will be for the time being, I will be returning to my hometown in Ohio, trying to reconnect with family and whatnot, because 15 years is a awfully long time.
There is that. Look at the bright side. You'll be closer to Callie Wright, so you got that going for you. Callie Wright, good friend of the show. Not so much a good friend. She's a friend. She's a queen. She has not served us with a cease and desist letter. Okay, it's good enough. It's good enough for me. I don't care. By the way, Joe, Felis is saying Joe is tired of being cold.
Yeah, about that, Felis. I'm not exactly changing latitudes.
Yeah, Ohio's pretty cold too.
Yeah. So
now,
there's that.
Further down the line, it's possible that I might be moving even further west.
Yeah, it could be. Hey, look at the bright side. At least you don't. Oh wait, I'm trying to remember.
Not quite California though. I would never go to California.
No. I was trying to remember. Where was it where they ended up lighting the river on fire? Was that
Ohio.
Pittsburgh? Oh, it was Ohio. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we can always plan on that.
We put an entire river on fire because that's just the way we roll.
Yeah, because EPA. Hey, look at that! Imagine. So. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Anyway, so yeah, we've like I said, we've heard on way too many occasions where the answer is evidence would make all the difference in the world, and I was hearing it from the Republicans earlier today because I was catching up on some of the back and forth of what was going on with Michael Cohen, and like I said, I know I am not making this specifically about my country. I'm using it as an example because there's another piece. Granted, it was also set here in the U.S., but whatever. Where the question was, if you've been a cheat and a liar and a duplicitous, two-faced whatever, and I'm exaggerating quite a bit here, so don't hold me to anybody. Why should we believe you? And it's a good question. It's a valid question. If you've shown yourself to be untrustworthy, why should we believe you? Why now? Why, little kid, since you've gone ahead and yelled wolf 3 times, why should we believe that there's a wolf this time? Joey, you're out of this one because you and wolves, we're not gonna discuss that. Joey right now is smiling. I know.
First off, bite me. And second off, yeah, we do try not to be too terribly Americentric here, but well, you know what they say, the squeaky wheel gets the blowtorch.
Well, that's only when you're done asking nicely. But that's settling, isn't it? Damn it. Whatever. Anyway, so the question is, why should you trust somebody that has proven themselves to be untrustworthy? And the answer is evidence. Because if you've got If you can go ahead and say, trust me, all you want, it ain't worth a hill of beans. But when you've got documentation, when you've got something that backs up what you've said, well, now suddenly that's a whole other thing. I could go ahead and tell somebody that I actually do have a starship in my house, and it's blue, and it accelerates at 1G, and yes, you could stand on it. Yeah, I didn't exactly say it wrong, but I didn't exactly give you all the information about it either. And by the way, for the record, this circa 1988 die-cast metal Enterprise D, yeah, it accelerates at 9 meters per second squared and 3, whatever. It accelerates at 1G, and when the flat of it hits your foot after 1.5 meters of acceleration,
ouch.
Yeah, it's an ouchie. It's a big time ouchie, because when they built this back in 1988, like I said, it's die-cast metal. You know when you've been hit with one of these. Unless you've been hit in the head, in which case you don't remember very much of anything at that point. But that's a whole other thing.
Shujin.
Mm-hmm.
Roughly 9.8.
9.8. Okay, I was trying to remember because it's 9 feet per second squared, roughly 3 meters. No.
I'm 9.8 meters per second squared.
Okay, I got it.
9.81 if you want to get,
I don't.
Even
I'm
more.
not that.
9.80665 blah blah blah.
3.1415926. Close enough.
That's as
Really
far as you're
close
getting.
enough. That's as far as I'm getting, because that's what was drilled in my head in high school. It's close enough. Anyway, warp 7 to the foot. Kato, yeah, you're you're not too far from the truth. Oh man, it felt like it. Anyway, but the problem of it is trying to figure out when somebody says, well, I've got evidence. Great. Show me. Now you
look
start
at the
getting
trees.
Yeah, that's
I saw that with the Austin, Texas show.
Yeah, we end up hearing a lot of people when we finally tell them, look, put up or shut up, and I've actually had to use that a couple of times on people. And let me tell you, using the 7-year-old kid speak, that's so freaking annoying, because it's 7-year-old kid speak, and it's accurate. That's annoying. That's distressing. When you can actually tell somebody, look, put up or shut up, and you're right. Anyway, but that's what it comes down to. Trying to deal with these people. You have to understand, when you tell somebody put up or shut up, and they say, well, here's blah. Now we've run into a problem. When we talk about the case for God, like Tech was saying, look at the trees. Kind of explain to them what the whole idea behind that piece of crap is. Tech.
Sorry, I was reading. What?
I try to have a classy show. I try.
I'm sorry. I had pulled up some of the fact checking that was going on for the Cohen hearing.
Yeah, remember, folks, you get what you pay for.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm also kind of mentally flustered. I'm on a diet now, lower calorie count, and my focus has kind of been shoddy the last 2 weeks. So where am I?
Does this diet change your
caloric intake?
Yeah, no, I got that. Your coffee intake too?
No, I'm.
Then you got no excuses. I don't care.
I'm also
Power through
normally
it,
asleep right now, so
I don't care. Power through it anyway.
all right. What was
So you since you brought it up, the whole look at the trees, look at the clouds.
yes.
What explain what that actual bullshit is? Because
all right, so the basic bullshit behind it. If I put my goggles back on, it's basically where they look at everything around them and they don't truly understand where things come from, how life has diversified over time. They don't understand the evolutionary process, and they're not taught how to ask those questions when they had their chances in school, assuming they did, because there are cases all over the U.S. Florida is a prime example where science teachers will go, evolution is just a theory. We all know Jesus did everything, or God did everything, and they'll power on through. And what happens is they wear these blinders, and they refuse to acknowledge that anything could have come about from chaos. Anything could have come about from randomness. That it had to have been made. That it had to have been God. And that if you look at the tree and you see the wonder and amazement of a tree, then you just have to know that it's filled with God's divine divinity. It was created for us. It's an amazing thing. It's like, listen, I can agree. I will look at a tree and look at the beauty of the tree, the symmetry of some of the leaves, and the awe-inspiringness of how tall some of them can get, the smells that come off of them. They are beautiful, beautiful plants. And I am a sucker. I'm an old-fashioned romantic. I will sit in a park and stare at listen to the wildlife, stare at the trees, look at the flowers, enjoy the clouds. I am a hopeless romantic in that respect. But I know where the trees came from. I know where the birds came from. I know where the clouds came from. I know how they change over time. I understand that the reason why we still have monkeys is not because we evolved from monkeys, but we evolved from a common ancestor that the monkeys have. We share the same ancestor, but that ancestor is long dead, doesn't exist anymore. That's why the ancestor's not there.
Are you presenting this as an argument for people who want to see God in everything, or
they choose to see God in everything rather than trying to fully understand what's going around them? It's easier. It's what they're told to do when they're young, if they're indoctrinated at an early age. And it's a comfortable zone. And like you have previously said in many shows, Joseph, for them, looking around and seeing God in everything is a very comfortable state of mind for them.
Yeah, because they don't have to think about it.
And I can confirm this because I used to walk around with God goggles. I used to look around and go, oh, God made these beautiful trees. God made these beautiful clouds. God made these beautiful bird songs.
And when you would think about that, who would you think about?
Well, I wasn't a Jesus head until later on.
Okay.
But pre
it's usually the people who are like enamored by people who are happy with the God as an answer for everything. Well, they feel themselves in a privileged position because they don't have to think about anything because somebody else is doing it all for them.
Here's an interesting thing.
It's just a question of finding that person.
The Vatican, the Catholic Church, long ago accepted evolution as how life changes over time. They just claim that it's basically God did it. It was like, you know what? Whether or not evolution is a tool of a deity that nobody can see nor technically, scientifically prove exists, or it's just something that how a system works, it still exists and it still works. You can tell me that evolution was designed by a deity. Okay, that part you've got to prove. But yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing how many people don't realize that the concept of evolution and how it functions and the fact that it is a scientific theory.
It's more than a concept.
It's a scientific theory.
Yeah,
but it's accepted by the Vatican. And people don't realize that. And it's been for a long time. At least long time as compared to how long I've been on this planet.
What we really have to do is get into the state of mind.
But
understand more about the state of mind of people who, quote unquote, need to believe this kind of thing. Well, and why people are protesting.
Honestly, when I was thinking it wasn't because I needed to. For me, it was a statement.
Oh, you felt you needed to, otherwise you wouldn't do it.
When I was growing up, I was taught that everything was created by God, and that God had a plan for everything. And granted, all the loopholes in that statement I was not aware of at the time. But one of the things that I mentally did when I would walk around and it would be an absolutely gorgeous day, I'd be like, this is an absolutely gorgeous day. I really appreciate this day. Well, like in all things that I appreciate, I was always taught that if somebody gives me a gift, say thank you. And I saw an absolutely beautiful day as a gift of a day. And my God goggle said, well, if you really truly appreciate this day and how much of a gift it is, then say thank you, dumbass. And so in my mind, I would
You felt taken care of.
I felt like somebody was appreciating me.
No, watching over you.
No, I didn't see a good day as somebody watching over me. I saw it as a gift because I knew exactly how bad a day it could be.
But do you see where I'm going with that?
Yes, but I'm telling you what how I saw it back then versus how I look at it now. And now when I see a beautiful day, I go, everything has aligned to make this day a good day. And luckily, I get to enjoy it because maybe next week it's going to snow or next week it's going to have sleet or rain or whatever. Today was a little damp, a little cold, a little overcast, but all in all, a good day.
And if there was sleet, would you blame it on that God?
Nope.
But
you mean back then? Oh, you mean back then? I meant now. Right now, I don't believe in a God. Back then, I would have said, "There's a reason for this," and that reason was God, rather than now.
You'd have to rationalize, but instinctively, what would you do?
Back then, I would have thought that it was twofold. That it was science and God together, because I understood how weather patterns worked, in the generic sense. I was not a climatologist.
But you're kind of distracting from the question. The question is, what's your instinctive reaction? Before getting to the rationalization, what was your instinctive reaction?
Back then, I thought God had created the system that created the weather patterns, had put it in motion, and therefore it was part of God's plan. And I didn't, it wasn't a beautiful day, but it was.
That's the rationalization. Yeah. But would you, if you had been confronted with the question,
Well, don't forget, I like sleety days. I like snowy days. I like rainy days. I like the bad weather days.
You're distracting from the question.
No. Well, no, wait a second. Hold on a second.
I'm not.
Hold on. I don't think that he is, because remember, he's also talking back about what it was like for him at the time.
Right.
And it's entirely possible. And I would argue it's exactly that way, that at the time answering the question is what he is doing. It may be a rationalization, but there's nothing to say that rationalization was not lockstep at the same time with the actual visceral thought of what was going on, the feeling of that. We know full well that that's what happens.
Maybe I wasn't clear, because my question was about the reaction. Like, you have a beautiful day, and you think, oh, it's thanks to God and all that. But if
okay, we have to be very careful with the wording. When it comes to,
well, you think it's a gift from somebody.
You say that I thought it was thanks from God. But my brain at that point said...
You felt that you had to thank someone for that beautiful day.
I felt that I had to keep with the teachings of my upbringing, which is when somebody does something nice, you say thank you.
Yeah.
Regardless of who that person is. Even if that person's not a nice person, if they've done something nice, you say thank you. And
I'm really trying to hone in on that reaction. On the reason behind your motivation to want to give thanks.
You have to understand that at that time, I only had a limited set of tools with me. I can't go back and get into that mindset 100% again because I don't believe anymore.
But I'm asking you to look at it now.
I am looking at it now. And what I can say is that back then, that's how I felt. That was a rationalization. That's how it was. And there's no other ways to put it into words because that's how it was.
Okay.
Now, if I look back on it and I go, boy, that version of me, they were on the path of, they were walking a tightrope. I was walking a tightrope of rationality and irrationality, that I was constantly going like this back and forth. I dip into science and I dip into God. I dip into science, I dip into God. And there were times where I dip into both, where I'd say, oh yes, science explains this, God made this work this way.
But that too is just rationalization after the fact.
What are they called? Diminishing returns?
What I'm most interested in is the motivation behind your wanting to thank a protector.
The motivation is I was taught to say thank you when something nice was done, and I felt it was a nice thing. Therefore, the instinct to say thank you for something being done nice.
I think that's a level above. But
no, seriously, if you told me that you built a weather machine, you made a nice day, and you could prove that you made the weather machine, I'd say thank you. Because that's what I was brought up to do. When somebody does something nice for me at work, even if it's something little, I say thank you. It's instinctual for me to thank somebody who's done something nice, even if I don't like that person. And I have people at work who I do not go around.
It's not a question of politeness when it's a nice day. You want to thank somebody. I'm asking about the motivation. Why do you even think there's somebody to thank?
Because I wasn't fully rational back then, and I was taught to believe in a God back then. That's why.
That's funny. I'm just asking you to examine yourself in that kind of situation a bit.
I did. And the fact is that back then, I used to believe in a God. And at one point, I even drank the Jesus juice.
Yeah, so did I. I mean, yeah. But I can't read your mind. I'm just asking you to read your own and relate.
And he's been doing that, and yeah. I think we've pretty well got it. At the time,
we kind of beat the dead horse.
Look, I'm not satisfied because I'll let it go. But I'm not
sorry,
satisfied
dude.
Because
stop. I was willing to let this one go through and try to go a little bit further into this one. At this point, that's gone. Forget about it at this point because there's nothing more to be gleaned. We can deal with that all a little bit later. We need to push on because that took far and away longer than I thought it was going to, and really didn't help us along with all this. Evidence. Back to it. Yay. Because all right, let me tell you where I was going to remind you about, because another one that came up that was really important also here in the US was when there was the debate between Ken Ham and Bill Nye. And one of the beautiful items came right near the end of it all, when the Q&A came from the audience, and somebody went ahead and said, what would it take for you to change your mind on this position of whether or not there is a God or evident? Yeah, basically is what it came down to. And the person was kind of laying out their question, and you could watch on the video. You'll see Ken Ham is just over there. He's just standing, standing, and Bill Nye is just smiling and he's nodding, and he's smiling and he's nodding, and the question is finally laid out there, and Bill Nye had the chance to answer it first. What would change my mind? Evidence. And then he added some extra pieces on there to kind of basically say, okay, this is what would qualify as evidence that would be repeatable, demonstrable, investigatable, all these things that kind of, sit right on top of that one nugget, but that nugget was right there. Evidence. And then Ken Ham went ahead and said, nothing. I'm perfectly comfortable in where I am, and there's nothing that you can bring out that will ever change my mind. I believe the correct expression at this point is, what a tool. I think that's probably the nicest way I can put that. So yeah. I was watching that particular debate on my new TV at the time, and I was live tweeting with no illusions back and forth about it, and that was a fun night. Anybody else remember that particular debate? Because that was fun for me.
Oh wow.
That was a little while ago, but yeah, you remember all that big fracas, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember people saying, "No, don't watch it. Don't bother entertaining it. Don't." And other people going, "Oh no, you should watch this. You should see all these things. Listen to the arguments. Listen to how information is presented, and understand both sides." And I ended up watching because of the simple reason being that my sister in high school took mock trial. And for people who are not familiar with that, students who get interested in becoming lawyers, whether they get interested in the prosecution and defenses and material, mock trial is a system where they actually go into a courtroom setting, and they'll have an attorney acting as a judge who's been very experienced going into court cases, and they will give case examples to be used as cases for the kids to try out their skills. Think of debate team, but lawyers.
Yeah,
right, in an actual courthouse. So they get to see the real wooden pews. They get to see the real stand and the judge's desk and the gavel and everything else. But the only difference is instead of wasting a judge's time, it's just an attorney. Therefore, the judges can still do their things and not cost taxpayers huge amounts of debt. So I went to several of my sister's mock trials. She's very good at defense, which is what she wanted to do. But she had a little bit harder time in the prosecution. And it was interesting listening to the people argue these cases based on the evidence that was at hand and testimony and everything else, and then seeing them flip sides and then argue completely the opposite side of the case. And I was flabbergasted. So it was also like, well, they had convinced me originally that this guy was guilty, and then the other team did a better job of defense, and now they convinced me this guy's actually innocent. And I was like, or not guilty. Holy crap! As a kid, I was mind blown. I had never experienced something like that before, and so watching these kinds of debates and such has become more important, so that I can hear the arguments that are used. Because who knows? There might be a day where Ken Ham or whoever makes a case for something and comes with actual empirical evidence to the debate. And that would be a game changer for their side. It's not that I want to see them do it. It's I want to see the evidence. And if they can bring the evidence to a debate, something other than the Bible, because I've got a napkin over here that says it's the one true napkin because it's written on the napkin. And it's like, my napkin's just as powerful as their Bible.
Yep. And we're still kind of waiting for that day to have happen.
Yes, we are. Because so far, what I've taken away from every single debate that I've watched, and I watched a bunch of them on YouTube. I've watched the ones with Aaron Ra, Matt Dillahunty, and so on and so forth. What's his face? He was at fuck it, I can't remember. Anyway, I've listened to a bunch of them, and when I listen to the theist side, I keep hearing the same things over and over again, just presented in slightly different ways, and it reminds me of all those horrible years I had to work retail, where people would come in and they'd be like, so if I get this computer, I won't have to upgrade it, right? And it's like, that's not a true statement. if you get this computer or any of these computers, eventually they're going to become out of date, and you can either take the time and finances to do little upgrades over time, which will end up costing less, or you can end up replacing the unit, which will cost more, but you can do it in one foul blow, and you don't have to do any interior work. Well, I want a computer I don't have to upgrade. Well, technically, that's every computer and no computer. And they kept trying to get me to say that I could, that whatever computer they were looking at would be the one, but it was never the one because there's no such thing. And so the same thing with the theocide. They keep trying to say this, that the Bible is true because the Bible says so. And they would just say it in 15 different ways. It's like, it doesn't matter how many different ways you spin it. You don't have the evidence to back up the statements.
And it gets to be really annoying.
It's tedious.
Yeah.
It's really tedious because then you have to deconstruct the sentence to figure out, are they saying the same shit over and over again, or do they actually have something different, and did they, hide it in the argument? And it's just like that mock trial, two people doing the same thing, just on different sides. One's doing one job better than the other at one moment, and then you flip it.
The customer is really just trying to get you to take the responsibility for their computer, by giving them an argument. No, giving them assurance from authority and all that. They think that you're gonna set the future up for them, which is kind of the same thing that they're doing with their religious leader or whatever.
Well,
it's a mental state.
It's even worse than that. Because when customers are trying to do, because I've been on that angle before, it's not that they're trying to pass along the responsibility to somebody else per se for comfort. It's that they're trying to pass along the responsibility that when things finally do go wrong and they do need to change and they do need to buy new stuff, it's your fault. So you owe it to me because you told me something wrong, because I pushed you into trying to say the wrong thing. And why won't you say what I want you to say?
Isn't that the same thing? That's giving the salesman the responsibility, which means if something goes wrong, it's your fault. That's giving him the responsibility.
But it's for a completely different reason. When you're dealing with it for the religious part, you are tacitly giving over that responsibility. You are simply abdicating that piece that you just don't want to be dealing with for whatever reason. Comfort doesn't matter. When you're dealing with it on this angle, for the customer is always right. The customer is intentionally forcing the issue because they are actively trying to shirk the responsibility onto someone else in order for them to be responsible for it later to get something over. They're doing a real shady shit item.
And the worst part is that every year that the holidays hit, the end of year holidays, I see one news agency, if not many, talking about how you can go in and act and the words that you use. And then when something goes wrong, maybe the product fails, or maybe the product's out of warranty, or you don't feel like following the company's return policy, how to get around it, and in such a way that, you, the customer, might benefit, but now that poor person may have lost their job, or they may just have lost their potential pay raise because you were the one unreasonable person that added to that mark on their record. So now they don't get that 25 cent an hour bonus anymore, or
we have a bad habit.
Or they just, or you may trip that one person because you were that one last unreasonable customer that psychologically tripped them over the edge, and they went on a freaking spree, a shooting spree, a drunken spree, a road rage spree, any of those things, because it happens during those times of years. Don't be that person, people.
What are we talking about?
Talking about unreasonable methodologies for trying to make sure that you come out ahead at the cost of other people. And I see that more in the theist community.
Yeah.
Is there even a rationalization behind it? Because I tend to see it more as a reaction kind of thing than
wait a minute.
As skeptics, we tend to. Oh, I've got Siri going off. Excuse me. Sorry.
It's okay. I wanted to ask you before you go too far past that one. What part in particular are you referring to? The theist side or the don't be that kind of customer pain in the ass side? Because they're two different things.
Theist or not, don't do that to people.
Well, yes.
Yeah. As for the theist part, listen, we understand you believe something. You got there somehow. You may have gotten there through improper reasoning, but reasoning nonetheless. You may have gotten there through emotion. You may have gotten there through an appeal to authority. You may have gotten there through whatever means. You know, don't try to dram it down our throats. You want to argue the point in a true argument format where you actually have different sides try to convince the other, but doing it properly instead of getting offended when somebody says they disagree with your argument, or yelling when they disagree with your argument because you think being louder is going to make you more right. You know.
Yeah, there's a piece about that. Felix is saying, by the way, and tech customers don't care about the customer rep person.
I know they don't.
And
this is years in retail. I know they didn't care about me.
Yeah, and from the tech side, we know full well that, you know, he and I both full well know that, you know, there's only so much that you can do, and the fact that you can't be Superman for these people is sometimes just too much for them to handle.
Sorry, I can't reach to the phone and identify the size of the connector at the end. I don't know if you have an RJ45 or an RJ14. You have to tell me what you see,
and we kind of work from there. And I know full well, Brigid, in the medical community, you know, there's only so much that any one of us can do, and there's going to be the times where people will want to ask for the simply unreasonable because they think, well, I've seen it done somewhere before, so why the hell can't you have Dr. House come down?
Yeah. And
well, I didn't exactly lead that properly well enough. There's only so much medical miracle that even we can do, even up into the 21st century at this point.
That is true. And that people have gotten such great expectations now that they'll go above and beyond what is reasonable and demand that doctors do too much, which is a bad thing.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I wanted to kind of let that one go at this point is that we have various expectations of what we should be able to accomplish, what somebody else should be able to accomplish, and that's where this problem of evidence comes into place. I've talked about how making a proper logical argument should be viewed as setting up dominoes for, what is it even called when you set up dominoes to fall onto each other? What is that even called? I've never found out. There's got to be like an actual term for it. And
no idea.
I don't even know what the hell to call it. Anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about, though. Mm-hmm. That every fact
consequence.
Well, that's eventually where I'm going to be getting to. But I'm talking about the idea of, you know how you can take dominoes and you can set them up one after the other, and then just hit them all and they all go down. And I don't know what that's actually.
Chain reaction?
Well, it is chain reaction after a fashion, but the actual process of setting up dominoes for that kind of thing, I don't know what that's. Yeah, I don't know what that's actually called.
Oh.
One of these days I'm going to find that out. Anyway.
Triggers.
Later. Figure it out later. Anyway, but where I was going with this is that a good argument should be like dominoes, hitting each domino in a chain from the beginning of your premise to the end of whatever your idea is. And each domino is another fact. And the one that hits should be implicitly necessary to hit the next fact. So it hits the next fact. It hits the next fact.
I'm raising my hand.
Well, I can't see that. You all I see is you're over here twirling your mustache, and you're fine. What?
Oh, you just made me do it. I think that I'm not so sure about the one after the other thing, but it's going back to what Tech was talking about earlier about lawyering. A good argument is a good reflection of reality, which means it stands to testing. So no matter how you look at it, from what angle, or no matter what order you look at it in, it's going to match reality.
Or and at the very least, it should.
Well, yeah, that's how it stands to testing. But Tech's example of the lawyering, it's funny how they argue. They just take select bits of reality and make them together to make a cocktail that can be very misleading.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's called cherry picking.
Yeah. But we all do it. And I mean, whether it's to the positive or whether it's proving innocence or.
And here's the thing about the cherry picking. I've actually been in court for a custody battle. I've actually been on the stand. Now, granted, there was no jury. It was the judge because it's circuit court or civil, whatever the hell it was. Anyway. And sure enough, when her attorney was asking me questions, either A, she didn't tell her attorney everything, which it turned out she didn't because her first attorney ended up dropping her ass for lying to her. The second attorney was oblivious and not as good, but immaterial. Her attorney asked a lot of questions that were based on basically very limited information and worded them in ways where I ended up going, I know I was instructed yes or no, but neither one is appropriate for this question. Because if I say yes, I look bad this way. If I say no, I look bad this way. So I had to say, I'm sorry, but this is not a yes or no answer because there's context for my answer. If I'm not allowed to give context, I cannot answer your question. And my attorney face palmed, but I got it out there. And my attorney later on, he told me, he goes, I thought you were going to blow it. You did that beautifully, but please don't do that ever again. And when he got to cross-examine me, he got to ask the questions that filled in all those missing gaps that her questions had left wide open. And her attorney was just completely blindsided by that. And it was a completely different ball game from there. You're right. The cherry picking happens all over the place. And attorneys, they're paid to do it.
But that's a great example because if you fill in the blanks that the cherry picker left open, you make it quite clear. Well, you make the dishonesty of their argument quite clear.
Yeah.
But I think even before considering any argument, even your own, the one you're making to any situation, I think it's before everything else, you have to consider the honesty of the argument. Are you looking at all the facts?
And evaluating them correctly. Correct. Now, there's also a truism when you're dealing with lawyer debate. And the truism is never ask a question if you don't already know the answer. And there's something really, really important in that people really don't think about. And it's a matter of not just not getting blindsided, which when you're in a court case especially, that doesn't look real good on you. And that's going to affect how, the judge is going to think about you, jury, if it comes down to that. But there's also the problem of if you don't know the opposite side of an argument, you're going to screw up. because you will not know how to properly evaluate all of the facts that are going to come into play and how they could be laid out. Because if there's one thing that I learned from my wife when she was dealing with account management, data doesn't lie, but you can spin it any way you want.
That would be statistics 101.
Bingo. So you can take whatever facts you want, and you don't necessarily have to cherry pick them, but how you put that information back out there again is something completely different. And if you don't know how that's put out there, well, you're pretty well screwed. Congratulations. And that's why evaluation of evidence is so terribly important. I mean, it's all well and good to go ahead and say, well, you know what? There's been no significant heating for the last 19 months. Okay? For the last 19 years. It's been statistically stagnant. Yeah, that's all well and good. Why are you specifically going back 19 years? Let's go back, let's continue that back 100, 150, 250 years, 500 years that we have ice cores for, where we can actually see, oh, look at this. This is the point in the ice cores where suddenly there's a buildup of lead. Geez, I wonder how that ended up happening. Anybody else see that particular episode of Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson? Yep. You should look that one up. It was a great one.
I remember where they were, and I'm not sure this was Cosmos because my brain's fuzzy right now. But there was a documentary on the man who lost his job in the oil industry, the fuel industry, because he ended up uncovering the fact that, what was it, the 70s, I think it was? There was major crime, and it all kind of boiled around major cities. And it was back when all the cars had lead in the fuel. And he had figured out that there was definitely a direct correlation between the lead fumes in the exhaust and what was happening to the human condition in terms of the violence and the aggression, the irrationality, the irritability, just the behavior of humanity in condensed areas where smog was a problem, where these fumes were condensed, and cities are those areas. And then once we went to unleaded, those sorts of crimes drop like a rock.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And he went out and actually tested stuff like on boats and all sorts of things. I mean, the guy really, because he knew he was done for. He knew once the report got published, he knew his career was over, and it did. It killed his career, but he did it to better humanity.
Yeah, the guy you're thinking of, Claire Patterson?
I think so. I'm not good with names.
Yeah, I remember that episode of Cosmos as well.
Yeah.
Shujin. Yeah, he. I mean, if I remember correctly, he was actually originally trying to calculate just how old the Earth actually was when he started noticing all the lead level changes over the course of just a few decades.
Yep, and he went out on a limb, and he did the research. He got his data, and he proved his case. And he was right. And we have kids that are no longer growing up with lead chips in their mouth from paint anymore because of that. Well, no, let me rephrase that. New lead paint, because that's not something that happens anymore, fortunately. There's still some places where you can still find it, unfortunately. But
okay. There are two people, Claire Patterson and Herb Needleman.
I think it was Herb that was on that they did the Cosmos thing on. I think.
Yeah, because I think his focus was plumbing. whereas his focus was on plumbing and health statistics that were popping up as he was looking at what the hell's causing all these neurological impairments and whatnot.
Yep, that'll do it.
And yeah, like I said, Claire Patterson was the guy who trying to figure out, well, how old's the Earth? What the hell is all this lead doing here?
Yeah, and these were guys. Admittedly, they were scientists, but they knew how to research into stuff to get evidence. Now, there's something that that I heard that one of the things that the Atheist Experience of Austin, which we've mentioned before, Matt Dillahunty had gone ahead and was dealing with somebody who was just like, poo-pooing on the scientific method, and scientists are shills and all that happy horseshit. And he basically said something that kind of caught me. At one point, all of those scientists were lay people before they were scientists. You learn how to do this stuff. That's what a scientist is. It is someone that learned the methodology, followed it down, and asked others to check what they're doing. And then if they got it wrong, they go and try to figure out what they got wrong, and then they tried again. And then tried again, and then tried again until they got it right. Which some could argue that getting a... Oh, shoot. Now I'm trying to remember. Mythbusters had it perfectly. It was something about even bad data is good data. I'm paraphrasing highly, but you get the idea.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Everything has a use, even if it's wrong. You try to build a wheel that reinflates itself, and you failed 999 times to build a wheel that can reinflate itself. Well, you found out 999 ways not to build it.
Yep. Yep, there's that. And I believe the expression they had was failure is always an option.
Yes. Though I prefer their other expression, the only difference between science and screwing around is writing it down.
That's right. It's exactly right. It's having a clipboard. You have a clipboard, you're doing science. You need to have some paper and a pen too, but I mean, that's details, whatever.
Recording your results, that's the difference.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Sharing failure.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned it on many an occasion, Brigid. I've put you under the microscope on a couple of times. We killed a lot of people trying to learn how not to kill people back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
eat that.
Don't eat that. Was a thing.
Don't eat that mushroom. That one will kill you. And
leeches have their use.
Yeah, well, yeah. So and funny enough, so do maggots. We found out.
How many times do you have to try that experiment? Like, if you don't write it down, well, that mushroom is poison. That mushroom killed that guy, and this one didn't. And
So,
if you don't write that down, you're condemned to repetition.
Something to consider there. Just how many lives has literacy saved?
Innumerable. And Joseph, as far as to the answer to the question of how many times can you do something, I believe it was the late great Daffy Duck who explained it best. I know, but I can only do it once. God damn it! Now I gotta find that clip.
Let's see. Do you have any other superpowers? Like what? I don't know. Can you stop a speeding bullet? Once.
Yeah.
What? It hurts like hell.
Yeah, but Brigid, like I said, I put you under the microscope, especially on occasion for the whole transfusing blood from dogs into people.
Yeah, painful way to go.
Because what happens?
Blood coagulation. Yay.
Basically, science is just a form of survival advice. It's a go-to reference for, how to better get by in the world.
Systemic immuno overload, pretty much.
Well, they used to do this thing called vivisection too, where hey, let's cut open somebody who's live and figure out how this works.
Yeah,
Oh, they're dead, but hey, we learned something. So yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't learn that vivisection is not no. Yeah, there is no amount of alcohol that can help somebody trying to go through a vivisection. It doesn't work. Although apparently, long before there was alcohol enough to dull the pain of such, apparently, I forget how far back, but there are skulls that have been found from several millennia ago that have holes drilled in them for releasing brain pressure and such.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like I'm sorry, I now have Alan Rickman in my head. I'm gonna carve out his brain with a spoon. I know I'm kind of.
It was his heart.
I know. You get the point, though.
But if they're swelling, they still do that today.
Why would you use a spoon? Because it'll hurt more, you idiot.
That's. I know spoons don't have a point exactly.
Yes.
Whatever.
From the movie that holds the distinction of worst British accent ever.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. I got a couple of questions.
No, we're not talking about Alan Rickman on that one. God.
No, I know. I can speak with a proper English accent.
Oh God.
Yeah,
leave us alone, Mel Brooks.
Yeah,
the credits alone were masterful.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So Trippin had asked something, and I don't know if it was or if it's just a meme kind of thing. But Trippin had asked, okay, by the way, I know I said meme. I was saying it as in meme. I was trying to say it twice, and I screwed up how I said it. That's my pronunciation.
As in meme-ish, and not trying to pronounce the actual word meme as mimi.
Yeah. And Brigid, you're going to have to help me out on this one a little bit. Wasn't using tiger blood a thing recently? I know the whole thing that happened with Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen. The whole I've got tiger blood, and that's why I'm thinking. I remember that as kind of being memeified, but an actual blood packing with tiger blood, I can't see that as actually being survivable. Really,
I don't think that can't possibly be what they meant.
I sure as hell hope not.
I mean, I'm thinking it had to have been some kind of dried, ground up, powdered something that they consumed.
Yeah. I don't particularly remember that one. And Kato was also asking, like, do the miners still use canaries to warn against poison? I'm going to get to that one in a second because I got something for you that I know they might have machines for that by now. Yes, but believe it or not, there was a system that was put into place that a guy who was really smart came up with, so that you didn't have to have canaries with you. If you were getting into an area that had explosive gases, the guy had figured out if you have a flame, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but if you have a flame, it will ignite flammable gases. No surprise there. But if you have a mesh completely surrounding the flame of a certain density, the heat gets dissipated through that mesh and does not ignite anything else around it. So some of these miners at one point had specially constructed helmets with a candle in the middle with a mesh around it, and if they started to see the light pulsing because it was igniting the fumes that were coming around it and not igniting the rest of the cavern, they knew, okay, we can't be in here anymore.
And
Let's leave.
We still have everyday uses for that particular technique today. Hell, for example, in my hand right now, I have a lighter. It is a butane lighter, one of those jet types that has like the little torch coming off it.
Okay.
But it's got over the outlet, it's got a little hexagonal mesh. And it will not allow it to ignite any gas that is above the mesh. And so you go ahead, you touch the cigarette to the mesh, you light it, and not normally, when you have a lighter that say has sat on top of your dashboard in the sun, you go to light it and you get this big plume because the gas is under so much pressure that it's pumping out at a higher rate than it normally would.
I'm sure I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about right now.
You don't have to be a smoker to own a lighter, It's actually good practice to have one. Fire is always useful.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sure I've never done that to myself before.
Never had to worry about whether both eyebrows matched.
Yeah, but that's a whole other thing. Oh, and by the way, Stephanie, no. Stephanie had said the dangerous gases cannot get through the mesh. Yeah, because it's in the air. Unless you're thinking of some kind of weird gas that's much denser than, well, effectively, a little bit thicker than, window screening, because that's effectively what it was like. Gases get through because air gets through, and that's the kind of thing we're talking about. It just needs to be tight enough to dissipate the heat very quickly.
Yeah,
that's what makes the big difference.
And it also disrupts the fuel-air ratio.
Right. And we're not talking we're not talking about some kind of semi-permeable piece here, Stephanie. We're literally talking about a wire mesh. We're not talking about, something that's effectively, a solid
sheet metal with holes in it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's effectively it. They're small holes, but there's a lot of them. I mean, you've got to have the air passing back and forth in order to make that work, and it does. I will have to there's helmets, flash mesh. I'll look that up later, and I'll make sure it's in the show notes for myself for later. So
it's kind of odd and somewhat disappointing in this day and age. I type in fire resistant screen, and everything that comes up is Amazon Kindle and fucking iPhone.
If you've been following my Facebook thing, I've been complaining about exactly that since about a month now. Google results have really gone south towards the commercial. Everything, it's impossible to look for anything factual or historical. I don't know if it's just me.
I wouldn't think it's just you. Everybody's got to have, what was the expression? I forget exactly what it is, but basically, if you're not buying something, you're the product that's being sold.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, yeah.
There's a reason why Facebook is free.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
In some ways, some of the stuff is a necessary evil, but the idea that Google has been, it's sales season.
Wasn't there
monetized?
Yeah, but why? Okay.
Remember, you can't blame Google for that kind of stuff, though. And if you need proof, go look up something called "If Google Were a Guy" on YouTube.
Oh God, those are hilarious.
Okay, this is like the fourth time I've had somebody talk about it. Somebody remind me after the show so I can go look that up.
I'll get the link. I'll get the links.
All right, we're not going to need it for the show. I don't think we'll deal with it anyway. But Joseph, it's part of the problem is that it's the sales cycle. the tech shows have gone on.
Do you know that? Is that an explanation?
It's part of it. I mean, what Google serves out is partially influenced by what's popular to be,
like, for example,
given out anyway.
For name places, I'm getting nothing but real estate ads. I mean, there's not even before you could look for something, a place name, and you would find what you're looking for on page 10.
Well,
but they don't even have a page 10 anymore. They cut off the results after about 200. So all you've got is retail real estate.
Ads. There's a few reasons for that. One is, people paying to get their search results brought up to the front of the line. And then there's the people who just
so these guys are getting priority, and there is no more end of the line.
Well,
is that acceptable?
I don't know.
Is that acceptable?
I'm doing something about it. But anyways, we need an alternative.
Well, we did.
Anyways, I'm distracting. My only question was, are you seeing the same thing as me?
Yeah.
I have seen it, and I wonder if perhaps there might be some way of altering that in your Google settings, but I don't know.
No, there's no way around that. I've looked everywhere.
My expertise end with art supplies and means of destruction. That's about it.
Fair enough.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with the...
Take that. I am the Alpha and Omega. I create and destroy.
I'm working on a fact, just my complaint. It's one thing to complain about something. It's another thing to provide a solution or an alternative. But I'm working on a fact-based search engine. And are you familiar with RDF? It's you've got relational databases, relational tables, columns and rows.
Yeah, I guess.
And then you've got RDF, which is basically anything can be connected to anything. It's a free-floating data model. Anyways, but I'm looking for a means to recrawl the web and arrange everything in a factual way, which means data linked to source data, linked to source data, linked to source data.
And as soon as you do that, somebody's still going to use to look up hedgehog cute. What? Well, hedgehog cute. What? Do you mean hedgehog cute?
No idea what that was. By the way, Stephanie is also saying, by the way,
I'm going to use that as a test model.
Okay. But, Wiki has a list of alternative search engines, so keep that in mind. I'm sure. Actually, I had gone looking up a couple of the old ones. Apparently, Ask is still out there.
Oh, yes. And bigger than it. Well, I won't say bigger than, but doing better than, say, Bing.
I hate Bing. I despise
Bing is trying so hard. It's funny. Bing is trying so hard to be like Google. They're even repeating their mistakes. They're doing their same mistakes just as badly.
I hate it.
And Ask, it's funny. It just came up this week. One of my clients had some sort of malware that somehow got into her computer, and it had installed Ask as the search engine de choix instead of Google. It somehow managed to manipulate Chrome, so she was getting Ask all the time. Every time she was typing something into the URL bar, the address bar, she was getting results from.
That's why, and I know it seems like malware, and sometimes it is. Not always, though. That is why you shouldn't just click rapidly through your installation prompt when you're installing new programs and such.
Oh,
you really should read that stuff.
Or at least parts of it, some of the various options that come along with stuff. But That's
Mhm.
a whole other thing. Man, now I'm thinking back in the day. There is a piece about this that actually kind of comes together.
Uh-oh.
Years ago, when Bing was still we wanna do this because Microsoft wants to do everything and be able to corner the market and get all the money because they don't have enough.
Mhm.
I have various terms that I'm not going to use right now because, well, I think I've used my my quota of F for tonight. They decided that they were going to go ahead and piggyback off of Google's results. Now, Google, when they found out about it, they took them to court over it, and they basically said, "Look, they're trying to profit off of our hard work." No, we're not. Prove it.
I was part of the panel that helped prove that, actually. And we were back in this is going back almost 10 years ago. Do you remember Slashdot?
Yes.
Well, that's where they did that's where they did the testing. They got a bunch of Slashdot users to cull results, skim, whatever, to do results in a certain way, or to do searches in a certain way, and then share the results with the Inquisition team.
And what did they find out?
Oh yeah, that Microsoft was indeed well, they weren't putting Google results at the top. It's funny, that was how they were found out, actually, because they were consistently putting the result in like second or third place.
And they basically showed, yeah, you know what? We told you, and here's the results that prove it, because this proves it. This is exactly what we said was happening, and that's wrong.
Because what they had the very scientific method. They had the hypothesis that Microsoft was doing this because a few webmasters got together and going, "Hey, are you getting this as a result?" "Yeah, I'm getting this too." So basically, what they did was they just widened their testing base to like hundreds of thousands of users. And I'm not even sure if anybody uses Slashdot anymore.
I'm not one of them. But
that was the place for this kind of thing.
Yep. And for those of you that are kind of thinking, well, this isn't such a big deal, why should it be a big deal? I can put it for you in one word: plagiarism. They did the same thing with paper maps back in the day.
And if you don't think about it, somebody else is.
Yep.
If you're not thinking about it, somebody else is.
Yep.
Because that's, to look for anything on the web, what choice do we have? Like, we have our hands tied by. We have faith in Google. We have to these days.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's annoying when there's only a handful, if even that, of available resources that are worth a damn. But at the same time, if they're doing the job right and well, therein lies the question as to whether or not they actually are. But that's
their motto until recently was "do no evil," and when you find yourself in a position, you have a hold over a monopoly. Well, corruption. I don't know.
Just wait until you're walking down the street and you start hearing the "Google be with you" and also with you.
Google be with you.
I don't want that to be the case.
I still like the joke of
Shujin knows what I'm talking about.
YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook merging under a common company called UTwitFace, but I look at the joke side of things.
That's perfectly fine. You know what? One of these, yeah, Joe. Now you reminded me. I gotta go look up on Amazon again to find out. Maybe I will buy a thing of those
wafers.
wafer cup combo things and send those out for Christmas to people. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know.
You're welcome.
Just a thought. I'll look it up. Anyway. God, where was I going to go at this point? I was trying to figure out.
Ain't I a stinker?
No. But see, the problem it is, I've got so many things that have been running through my head anyway with this topic that I'm not even sure which direction to get going to at this point.
A topic?
Now, one thing I will say, going back to sort of our original topic theme, yes, if somebody has been bullshitting you over and over and over again, you might find it hard to believe them. But when they start telling you that the neighboring town's on fire and you start seeing the glow in the middle of the night, it's probably a good idea to at least give some credence.
To investigate a little bit further. Absolutely. And right now, that's a good portion of what's happening right now in the U.S., trying to figure out what's been going on with Donald Trump and all the interweavings and whatnot, and who's Fredo and who's Sonny, and some people are going, ooh. Some people going, well,
it was just business, Michael.
I tell Michael it was just business. It wasn't personal.
He knows.
He knows. Yeah. You know, my Italian brethren. I know. But you know, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? That was a real horse's head. You know.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna leave the gun, take the canola.
Cannoli,
yeah.
Canola.
If oil.
The pastry.
Yeah, cannoli.
I'm sorry. I do love that particular actor, but every vowel out of his mouth sounds like
Well, lazy Italian does kind of come across that way, but that's just me. Put it this way: if it's a choice between I and A, one you would love to eat, the other you would need a straw, and even then you really don't want to do that.
Yeah,
you really don't want to do that.
Oh, you still want it in your kitchen?
I use
yes. You what?
Use coconut oil, not canola.
You stuck-up son of a bitch! Really?
Yeah.
Good God! Do you use avocado oil too while you're at it?
No, but I do have several types of olive oil.
Okay.
Extra virgin olive oil, squeezed from fresh seedlings.
And I get a nice massage while I'm doing it.
I try to have a classy show.
And for the happy ending.
All I ask is for one rehearsal a night, and this is what I end up with.
So is the result a cannoli or a canola?
You know, you go ahead, you keep this up. It doesn't matter which one. You will have to drink either one of them out of a straw after I go ahead and punch you in the face.
Ooh.
Well, you could. The better side of that, you could put it into an IV drip.
No. I will go ahead and I will say there's specifically two people that I really don't like. I can't say hate because I don't hate. There are two people. I would not be upset with reading an obituary for them, but at the same time, I would not put an IV into them and put canola into their body. I'd pay somebody else to do it, but I wouldn't do it myself.
You wouldn't piss in their mouth if their teeth were on fire.
That's a medical thing. Brigid, is there a medical condition whereby people can have their teeth catch on fire?
I just snort.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Is there?
I don't think so.
Good.
Somebody got me with the spitting coffee thing for once.
Oh, that's.
I believe
wonderful.
that's an Encino Man reference. I could be wrong.
I don't know, but see, if people could actually gnash their teeth together and get sparks, and they could burp all at the same time, you've got a dragon. Think about that. Yes, I actually once upon a time I actually did research on how dragons were supposed to have fire breath, and that was one of the methods.
I think everybody has at one point or another.
Yeah, yes.
And I've seen it all, from having, the extra organs in the chest to having the what are effectively venom sacs that are filled with naturally occurring napalm.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there's the Thor's thimble. Yeah, this is what I do to myself. Anyway.
Moving on. Back to subject.
Yeah, back to subject. Okay, so as was mentioned, every once in a while you're going to have some people who are going to go ahead and... Oh, good, I get to pull out this one. Every once in a while you're going to deal with a bullshit artist. Joey knows. Joey's laughing.
You tried a bullshit this week. Yes. Did you bullshit this week? No. Did you try to bullshit this week? Yes.
Yes. So
and by the way, when you die at the palace, you really die at the palace.
Yeah.
Did he just call me fat? I believe he did so.
Oh, I get that.
Not helping me here. So the point of it is, yes, every once in a while there will be someone who is a consistent bullshitter on a topic. Now, you gotta kind of have to remind yourself of two very important pieces. Item one, and this is always an important piece to think about. When you're going to go into an argument or a discussion, or even if you're going to get into a fist fight. I know this doesn't happen very often anymore, but trust me on this one. Rule number one of fighting: never fight angry. That's important.
That's a very good rule.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also,
and that's not just limited to physical fighting either.
Exactly.
Also, never lose the high ground. Anakin forgot both those lessons.
And that's not just physical either.
Right.
Yep.
Now, the reason why I bring it up is that if you get angry, you get dumb. You forget things. You miss things. And that's when everything just goes to pot. So if somebody wants to go ahead and try to get under your skin so that they needle you until you are just going to go ahead and just throw up your hands and say, screw it all, and then they win by default because they're completely unreasonable and who cares? If you keep your cool, you can usually figure out what somebody's angle is and then deal with it on their terms.
See, that's why some of our attack helicopters during the first Desert Storm weren't armed with missiles, but instead subwoofers.
You need to explain that a little bit.
Psychological warfare. Let's just put it that way.
Fine. Okay. Anyway. So somebody will go ahead and have whatever point it is that they want to make. And then they will go ahead and they will just be all proud of themselves because they know exactly what they're talking about and they've gone ahead and they've scored their point. Doesn't matter what the topic is. And then people like us come along and go, well, no, wait a minute. That doesn't sound right for some reason. I think I've heard something different. And then person will come back around. They'll either reiterate or they'll slide into something else. Maybe they will start working on the whole "why don't you believe me" thing, or the "why are you believing facts from the establishment, 9/11 truth or inside job, flat earth, doesn't matter." But then comes the inevitable, well, can you show me your data? Where are you getting your information from? Who told you this? If you found out about it from the deep state, how come you're not already dead too? You know, all these inconvenient parts. And then comes the absolute thing I hate, because I've had to deal with this one on too damn many occasions. The rebuttal from Nani Nani Boo Boo, otherwise known as "I'm not going to do your homework for you." Have we seen this before, guys? Anybody? I know I'm one of the few of us that gets into fairly regular discussions. So,
Well, this is a regular occurrence because basically these people, their line of reasoning isn't one. It's they're requesting blind faith. Why don't you believe me? You know, they could be talking about pretty well everything. And they must have an audience of credulous people, otherwise they wouldn't do this anymore.
Yep.
And the thing is, the claim is not the only thing to question. It's also, why are you making a claim without evidence? What's your goal in doing that? What do you want to prove? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish?
Yep. And then trying to tell somebody in that particular situation, well, I would like to believe you, but if you don't show me how you came to this conclusion, how am I supposed to believe you? They don't like that answer very much.
And one thing they
You're
love,
ruining their game.
one thing they love to do is they will try to make it personal. Why don't you believe me? Are you calling me a liar? And remember, don't make it personal. It's not that I don't believe you, it's that I don't believe your statement.
And that's just a distraction. That in itself that speaks volumes about what their goals are. But they have to answer that themselves. You kind of have to hold their feet to the fire to get them to explain their motivation.
And then suddenly it becomes a big yelling match because, like Joe said, why don't you believe me? And they can't separate the idea from the person, from themselves. And then you start getting into the whole thing, especially when it's the God question of, well, yeah, I have a God, but they're from Vancouver, and you wouldn't have met them. I met them on a summer, and no, I don't have any pictures because we didn't take pictures.
Not all of us are that big of hockey fans.
It's annoying.
Like, imagine the question, why exactly do you want to tell me that the world is flat?
Don't get me started on flat earthers. I don't.
Why do you
crazy.
need to believe that? That'll probably be the answer. Complete silence.
You know, from all the things that I've heard, and I've listened to Michael Marshall for Be Reasonable many times with several different flat earthers, I don't think that question has ever been brought up. Now, it's entirely possible that I've missed it because I have a very hard time listening to these interviews to their conclusion, but I don't know that question has been brought up before.
Isn't that a problem? I mean, I kind of get annoyed at people like talking about, like, even on things like the atheist experience, they're talking about religion in a religious language. You know, they're talking about the God or whatever, it's a straw man. Like, but nobody's asking, why do you need that God? What is that going to change? Like, there's no evidence for any such thing. So why do you insist on returning to this again and again? Of course, Matt Dillahunty, he does ask people, like, why do you believe what you believe? But he never gets an answer.
That's, yeah.
It's like, I'm talking almost from, I'm sorry, I keep on coming at this without saying it. I keep on coming at this from a psychological angle, from, trying to have a closer look at what actually makes this work. Why do we need these kind of things? Why do people behave this way?
It's a good question. It's not an easy one to answer.
Yeah, maybe for another show. Sorry about that.
No, nothing wrong with that. We're actually coming up onto the top of the hour, so I think I kind of throw it open for you guys. If there's anything left to put out there for yourselves that might have not gotten enough of or missed. Anybody have anything they want to throw? Because I'm not quite sure what I can drop in as a last for myself yet. That's very well put, Joe.
Excuse me. Sorry.
I'm almost out of coffee myself, and I am just fading fast.
Okay, well,
yeah. Excuse me. I have dealt with many individuals who had a colorful interpretation of the truth, shall we say.
Okay.
And no matter how many times I've caught them in that situation, I always hear them out. The thing that I pay attention to most is when they start to try to do the not quite sleight of hand, but sleight of word. It's at that point that I just shut down the conversation.
I can see that can get annoying real fast. Fair enough. Brigid, you're the only one that hadn't chimed in at all at this point for any last item. So, any last item?
Nope.
Okay. Tech, I know that you said that you're fading fast. Anything that you wanted?
Everything said and done, it still comes down to when you have theists, they got there somehow. And if you can figure out how they got to where they were, assuming you want to engage, and you of, this person has of the engagement itself, you have a reasonable expectation that you're not going to get this person to reason themselves out of religion. There's probably a really good chance that they didn't use reason to get there in the first place. But the reasonable expectation of having a conversation to have the conversation, not to go around converting everybody, deconverting everybody. But doing so openly and honestly, you'll have a better time with it.
Good enough. And real quickly, Joseph, anything, or you good? Or did you step away?
Well, no, I'm good. Yeah, I was just in the background.
Okay. I'll make it real quick. If you run into a situation and you want some advice on how to close an argument, feel free. Let me know. I'll see what I can do for you. because if there's one thing I've learned, I love to go ahead and tell people, yeah, could you just kind of like show me how you got there? Because I'd love to be able to see it. That's not that. No, that's not how you got there, because that's got nothing to do with it. And now you're upset because I asked you to show me how you got. I'm not asking you to do my homework. I'm asking you to go ahead and put up or shut up. And if you can't do that, well, look, you want to go ahead and you want to rant and rave and stomp your feet. That's all well and good, little boy. But until you show me, I got no reason to believe you. And neither should anybody else. Oh. So you went ahead and you blocked me on Facebook. That's nice. Fortunately, I kept this tab open for just such an emergency. Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. I'll just go ahead and post this whole damn thing over on my own group's web page on Facebook. You want to go ahead and see me argue with people? Go look through the photo collection over on Facebook for Holy Crap the Vlogcast, and you have yourself a great laugh. Because every once in a while, I still do that. A little bit. Let's just go ahead and wrap up at this point. So, everybody, thank you very much for being with us. Hope that you had yourself a good time. Hope that you found something worthwhile in all of our perspectives, and you got something to think about now for the week ahead. I'll tell you about a little thing in just a couple of moments. Over on the live chat, I want to thank you guys for being with us over there. Cato, Felis, Stephanie, thank you guys. When you finally get some sleep, I hope that it's a restful, warm night for you guys, morning, whatever it is at this point. As usual, thank you, crew. Joseph, thank you very much for your time. Good luck continuing with the projects over there, man. You have yourself a good morning.
Yeah, I've got a plate full. Of course, I'm not getting paid for any of it, but anyways.
Yet. You can always monetize everything.
That yet has been going on for 30 years now.
Yeah, well, it's worst comes to worst, you can always go to Amsterdam and you can just sell your body. It's fine. Sex work is fine.
What's
you can
left
do that.
of it?
Yeah, sure, why not? Got a great mustache for it. Look, thank you for your time. Shut up. Thanks for your time.
Mustache and hemorrhoids.
I said Amsterdam, not Germany, but okay, sure.
Oh, what does that mean?
UnrenownedTech, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Run, Jeremy!
Yourself.
The French, they laugh at German jokes.
Hold that thought 1 second. Tech, you have yourself a good morning. Thank you very much. Guys. Joey, I didn't bring up the war.
No.
Joey knows exactly what I'm thinking because we
now
talked about this last night. Yes, I did. I didn't start it. Yes, you did. You have yourself a good morning, man. You sleep well and stay warm.
It's not really that cold here right now.
Yeah, right now. Just wait.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Gee, thanks.
You're welcome. Well, yeah, eventually. It's just a question of where and when and how. And personally, I don't have a problem with the idea of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens. Brigid, speaking of which, you try to have yourself a good morning also. Stay warm and safe travels, because we know full well what the streets are going to be like.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, you take care of yourself, and thank you very much. And
if you want to find me on Facebook, I am Brigid Fitch. And you can also find me on my blog at brigidfitch2112.wordpress.com.
Ding on. So everybody, again, thank you very much. If you'd like to subscribe to the audio version of the podcast, take a swing over to holycrapthevlogcast.com over on the left side. We are behind, unfortunately. Part of that is because we got to kind of wait for Dalan. He's the one that manages the audio portion of it all. I'll see what I can do about, getting a hold of some of that, so that maybe I can try to help out with a little bit of that. We'll see. When Dalan gets his new machine up and running, we'll be back up and running eventually. So just give it some time there. If you would like to get all of our social media links as well as our contact information, again, over at holycrapthevlogcast.com. And if you'd like to leave a voicemail message, phone number is 859-HCTV-554, 859-4288-554. And if you feel like dropping a couple of dollars or something, yes, we do have a thing over there on Patreon. So it's just patreon.com/HCTV. 2 weeks from now, I will be in Toronto for Fertile Equinox. So I will not be here. We will have to see what happens with that. If Dalan has got a new machine by that point, great. If not, we will have a bye week at that point. Keep a watch over on the usual social media links, and we will let you know what's going to be happening with that. Don't bet one way or the other. Right now, we will have to wait and see what happens. But if you do happen to find yourself up in Toronto 2 weekends from now, I will be DJing on Friday night, so I'm very happy for that. Kicking off the DJ sets. So 70s to 90s dance, it's going to be my thing. I'm going to be very happy for that.
To quote Homer Simpson, Toronto, what's he doing in Mexico?
Not drinking the water. Actually, I will probably have a really good time. Actually, no. I know for well I'm going to have a very good time. But in any case, I will see about having whatever information out there for everybody so that they can enjoy some of the pictures and such.
I'm going to have a very good time. A.
B, I will be coming back with a whole bunch of maple syrup because I'm out. I'm out of the good stuff.
And you're going to say A a lot.
I will not.
A.
Because I am American. I am not going to disparage the Canadians by trying to commandeer their language. That's not the way we do things.
But it's contagious, A.
I know that you're effectively giving me permission to culturally appropriate the language, but I'm not going to be doing that. So thank you, but no, I will have to pass. Besides, it's bad enough. One of the times I was up there before, I caused an international incident with the seagulls, but that's a whole other thing for later. I'll tell you that story another time.
Like they say in Canada, bienvenue, eh?
What did you call me?
Bienvenue, eh? Bienvenue means basically you're welcome.
Oh.
Although the Quebec Canadians use it in a completely different way than the French do.
Oh.
So because Quebec.
Yeah, they use it as a hello.
Ah, yes, of course. I thought it was more along the lines of piss off.
In France, it means you're welcome, but you have to keep all this in mind for your Toronto trip.
No,
you won't hear a word of French there.
Well, that's not entirely true. I've got a couple of people who are bilingual, and I'm going to basically tell them, don't speak to Tiny Tribble in English, only in French, because he's been taking French, and he didn't do enough in Quebec as far as I'm concerned. So,
mais je me demande quel accent ils vont utiliser.
I have that was okay. I did not know that you spoke Greek, so thank you. That was
Quebecois French.
Yeah, that's Greek to me. I don't care.
Omelette de fromage.
The only word in French right now that I'm thinking of is décolletage, and we need to go now because that's what I'm thinking of.
Décolleté?
So, you all have yourselves a great night. We'll be looking forward to talking to you again next week. Until that point, please take care of yourselves. And if you've been following me personally for all of my stuff, yes, I do have a sideline project that I finally got done earlier today. I'm very proud for. No, I'm not going to talk about it directly here. You'll have to look it up and tough shit. In the meantime, if you're going to be out there with the Arctic blasts, please be careful. Please be safe. Please stay safe with your fingertips, especially. Don't want anybody having anything falling off. But in the meantime, until the next time we get together, everyone, as always, I wish you the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. For those of you that are celebrating a birthday along with me and others this week, enjoy it. Happy solar orbital natal reset moment. And of course, my lady, 13 and a half years on, I am still in love. Not today, Fujin. I love you and I miss you. Dream of me. Till the next time we get together, everyone, as always, good night.